ovulation. So my first question for you is explain how a person gets pregnant. We're going to start at the ground
Sure.
zero on this,
Right.
and let's start there.
Right. So a lot of times someone will get pregnant, especially a young person, because they don't understand how a person gets pregnant. So this is just basic anatomy, um, but very important. And this is not taught in schools of how to get pregnant. It's just really when you have that sex education talk, they talk about the period, they talk about sperm and an egg being separate entities, and then if they should collide with each other, a person gets pregnant. That's really the extent of their education in
Mhm.
fifth grade, right? And then
Yeah.
it doesn't, unless they're taking a health class as they get older, they're not really going to get any other information except for what they learn at home or from what they learn from their friends, which is usually not correct.
Right.
So basically, this is what happens. When a person becomes pregnant, typically it starts with a sexual encounter between a male and a female. And as we're talking today, we are going to refer to male as someone who has testicles and a penis, and female, someone who has ovaries and a uterus. Your reproductive system has absolutely nothing to do with your gender. There are lots of different genders, but there are only two reproductive systems, and there's only four ways you can be born. You can be born with a female reproductive system, a male reproductive system, both reproductive systems, or none. So that's it. One or the other, both or none. So when a person gets pregnant, what happens is sperm and an egg will meet each other during when the woman is ovulating, when the female is ovulating. That window is only 24 to 48 hours. And then what happens is the egg, as it is fertilized, and it usually gets fertilized in the fallopian tube. So your ovary will expel the egg. And if there is sperm anywhere in the vicinity, when that egg is open for ovulation, one sperm, only one, goes in, and then it closes up, and it continues to move down the fallopian tubes into the uterus, and then it will implant itself. That process takes between 10 and 14 days. So that's the luteal phase of your menstrual cycle. So that's the end of your menstrual cycle. The beginning of your menstrual cycle is your period, and then the follicular phase, which is where the egg is being released. And then you have ovulation, which is 24 to 48 hours. That is the only time you can get pregnant. And then the rest of the luteal phase, either it implants itself, or as it makes its way down the fallopian tubes into the uterus unfertilized, that's when the lining sheds. And that's when you would get a period. But that process can take up to 2 weeks to
Okay.
happen.
And is that process that can take up to 2 weeks, is that how long it takes a fertilized egg to get implanted? Or
It
is that
takes about
something different?
Well, it takes 6 to 10 days for the fertilized egg to travel down the fallopian tubes, and then it gets implanted after it gets into the uterus.
Okay.
So it does take quite a while. It's not like it gets fertilized and then you're good to go.
Right.
Because as it's in the fallopian tube, and if you ever look at an anatomy picture, the tubes are, they're bigger, they're small, they're like this, but the egg is only like that. So, as it's moving down, it takes a while. And sometimes that egg can get implanted in the tube.
Mm.
Now that's a whole me too.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother bag of monkeys. Like,
Okay. So then the window of ovulation is 24 to 48 hours where you
mhm,
can get pregnant.
yep.
Typically you get the egg and the sperm meet in the tube, and then the fertilized egg takes 6 to 8 days to travel down, and that's when it gets implanted in the uterus, right?
Yes. Now,
Okay.
the egg can get fertilized anywhere in that tract.
Okay.
It doesn't only get fertilized in the tube. It can get fertilized anywhere. And remember, you have two ovaries. Typically, one ovary will let the egg go, and then the next month the other one will. There are times where multiple eggs are set free from both ovaries, either ovary, and then there could be a time where they set from both. So you want to make sure that if you do not want to get pregnant, you do not have sperm anywhere near ovulation.
Okay. And so then, okay, so then you have that window, the 24 to 48, and then a secondary time frame of 6 to 8 days. So realistically, I'm asking you a math question now. So, so basically, okay, so we have these two time frames, but then, okay, so how long does it take for your body to recognize that you're pregnant? So, question being, how long does it take for a pregnancy test to register that that egg has been fertilized?
So, most over the counter pregnancy tests can detect a pregnancy about 1 week after a missed period.
Okay.
So, that's a whole month from your last menstrual cycle, or not your, sorry, it is a month from your last start day of your period, because you cycle every day.
Mhm.
So some tests say that they can do it earlier, around 5 or 6 days before your missed period, but the accuracy of that varies.
Okay.
For the most reliable results, you should go and have a blood test done, and that will
Right.
definitely tell you if you're pregnant or not. And that's really why I am fighting so hard to teach these classes and to get as many women into these classes as I can, so that I can teach them what to look for, how they're feeling,
Yeah.
tracking their menstrual cycle so they know exactly when things are happening. And the
Mhm.
second something doesn't feel right, that they can go get it taken care of. We're going to
Right.
talk about the math of an abortion of that 6 weeks.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you next, because I mean,
Okay.
this is a pretty tight time frame. And so if you're looking at a 4 to 6 week window, this brings up these new bans that are being pushed through state
Mhm.
governments.
Yeah.
The key number being 6 weeks.
Mhm.
So the 6 week abortion ban, what is from when? Like, what is their timeline?
So a 6 week abortion ban starts from the first day of your last period. Does not start from conception. It does not start from the day you missed your period. It starts from the day of your last period. So from the day of your last period until when your next period should have happened is an average of 28 days. So if you have one that's a little bit shorter or a little bit longer, that may give you a day or two more to get help, or give you less days to get help. So right there, that's 4 weeks, 4 full weeks. And if you're in a 6 week abortion ban, you now have 2 weeks to get to the doctor, get your two appointments, because most of the time when you're in a 6 week abortion ban state, you have to have two appointments. Don't get me started. The Xanax is working. The Xanax is working. The Xanax is working. Okay. So anyway, back to this. So okay, so I wrote down the math because I'm not good at math, so I just want to make
Mhm.
sure I had all this.
Okay.
So period to ovulation is at least 14 days. So that's 2 weeks.
Okay.
Okay. So that gives you only 4 weeks left now.
Mhm.
From the fertilized egg to implantation is 10 days. That gives you another maybe week and a half. So now you're down to a week and a half. So when you miss your period, you have 10 days to get to the doctor, figure out that you're pregnant, and have them give you the medication in a week and a half. And anybody who has tried to get a doctor's appointment in the United States knows damn well it takes longer than a week and a half to get in, especially a gynecologist.
Yeah.
And that you need 2 appointments, and that your insurance is going to allow 2 appointments within a week and a half, you're fucked.
So, all right.
Mhm. Now, in the United States, um, uh, yesterday or the day before, the Republican nominee for president did a interview with Time Magazine and suggested that states start monitoring pregnancies, meaning they can go into your apps and look to see your tracking to see when exactly 6 weeks would be. Now, this nominee very, very rarely says anything truthful. So I don't know if that is something that is actually happening. However, when he does speak, some things that he says that we think are completely off the wall actually happen.
Right.
So if it's in his conscious that he said that, it's being said somewhere and it's being done somewhere. So I don't want to be an alarmist at all about this. We all have those trackers on our phones. I know,
Yeah.
it's just an easier way to track it. I mean, usually, way back when we were doing it, it was on the calendar, like I would
Right.
have like a sticker on the calendar.
Right. Well, and the
And now
thing is that with any kind of tracking, it's open to human error. I mean, I have a tracker for my food, for my workouts, for, yes, for my periods and symptoms that I have. Um, do I remember to do them all? No. Do I make stuff up sometimes? Sure. But, and I think that's true of most people. You're going to kind of fill in the blanks like, oh, I forgot to fill this out 2 days ago. Oh, okay. And you just kind of like, make your best guess. So the fact that they would use that as fact is quite frightening.
yes. And this individual also, a few years back, said that there absolutely should be punishment for women who have abortions. Now, they have since, taken that back. But again, some of the things that this individual says happens.
Well, yeah, the ideas stick.
They do. And the fact that women and doctors need the government to come in and look at their trackers to see that when their 6 weeks really is, when 2 of the weeks they weren't pregnant, but they're going to include like an obsolete 2 weeks. Like I wasn't pregnant those first 2 weeks.
Right.
Yeah, but you know what? We're just gonna throw that in anyway because we really
Yeah.
want to stick it to you. But
Okay.
yeah, so we
So,
want to, yeah,
okay.
keep me on track. Ask the next one. I will go off on a tangent if you don't keep me going.
Yes. Okay. So we know the timeline from where the 6 week ban starts. So then, I guess it's how do you, okay, so I guess you have to, in the next step of this phase, um, and I guess this would go well, it's just good to know that time frame about the ban, but then, okay, so you have intercourse, you get pregnant, you have the fertilized egg, you have, okay, the clock starts ticking. So then the next step is that you have to get to those 2 doctor appointments. So, what is the doctor going to do to prove for a fact that you're pregnant? What are
Well,
the
they'll take a blood test. They'll take a
Okay.
blood test and a sonogram.
Okay.
Yeah. It may
And
not,
then
it'll be way too early to take a sonogram. They may be able just to see the sac with fluid in it because that's all it is at that point. It's a bunch of cells that are dividing. They haven't formed anything yet. It's just a
okay,
sac.
let me ask you this because I was at the beginning of both of my pregnancies, I was in Europe. So I don't know how it's handled in the United States, but I did have an internal sonogram done.
Sonogram. Mhm.
So do they do that in
That's
the
how they,
States as well when they
yeah.
do the blood test? Okay.
Yeah, they can do one or the other or both.
Oh,
Usually it's definitely a blood test. They'll definitely do a blood test just to make sure.
uh-huh.
When I had my ectopic pregnancy, they did the blood test. It came back that I was positive, and then they did an internal sonogram and couldn't find the pregnancy. So
Right.
that's how they determined that it's ectopic
Yeah,
pregnancy.
that was the
Yeah.
same with me too. Okay. Okay, so then the markers of, having that box check saying, yes, you are in fact pregnant is a blood test. You'll probably do like the urine test at home, and
Yep.
they'll probably do one at the office at some point too, and
Yep.
then
Yep.
potentially an internal sonogram. So you have three things that can happen to
Right.
go, yes, it is absolute truth and fact that you are pregnant and your 6-week clock started here.
4 weeks ago.
Right.
Well, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so now that you're in that place, you figure out where in that 6-week band timeline you are, then you have to start talking about your options, right?
Yeah,
Of what you can do.
you're gonna have about a week and a half to decide if you want to continue with the pregnancy, notify your partner if that is something you need to do,
Mhm.
make an appointment for the doctor and make 2 appointments. Now, if you're in a different state, it's not 2 appointments. It varies by state in the United States. But if you're in a 6-week ban abortion, typically it's two. They try to make it as difficult as possible, and they limit the places you can go to even get checked. So you could be like, you could be in the southern part of your state, and the only clinic you can get to is in the northern part of your state, which, could take days to get to if you're
Mhm.
driving, right?
Yep.
Or taking mass transit or whatever. It could take a long time to get there.
Yep.
So yeah, I had 5 miscarriages myself, and it's very painful when it happens.
Mhm.
So anyone thinking that, going into deciding whether or not you're going to have an abortion is easy,
Yeah. It's
just has
not.
heads up their asses, because
Yeah.
I believe in pro-choice all the way. I don't care. It's not me, so I don't care what you do. You want to abort day one, you want to abort, day 90. I don't really care. It's not my business. But I can tell you, by having 5 miscarriages myself, it is traumatic.
Yeah.
And I do not wish that on anybody. And the fact that there is no compassion put into these laws is just infuriating.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that people decide for you what you're going to do.
Well, and half of these men don't even know the proper functions of the female anatomy anyway, so that just makes it even worse. But let's
And
let's let me
not every man
not every man, but a
are
lot of them.
the ones that are in government. It seems that they all gravitate towards government so that
Yeah.
they can make the laws.
Yes.
Yeah. But the average man, I have not met one man yet, to be totally honest, and I live in a ruby red area. I have not met one, even if they're MAGAs, that agree with this ban. Not one, because they're terrified, because it affects them too. If your girlfriend gets pregnant, you're fucked. Totally. If she
That's
decides to
true.
keep going through with it, like, you are totally fucked. So they
Yes.
know that. Like, that's in the back of their heads. I don't know
Right.
any man who's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get her pregnant and like ruin the rest of my life. Sure, no
Right.
problem. Yeah.
Okay. So what are there's like different kinds of terminations, medical.
It's 2 pills. The first one, and I have a very difficult time pronouncing them. It's Mifepristone. My mifepristone. I think that's what it's called, mifepristone.
You'll have to
That's
have
the
it
first.
spelled out on the screen.
Yeah, I will. And then misoprostol. That's the second one. Misoprostol. So these two drugs, the first one you take, it blocks the hormone progesterone, which you need in order to create that implantation. Okay. And
Mhm.
then the second one you take will then expel it. It will start your uterus contracting. So what your period is every month is your uterus contracting and
Mm.
expelling the lining of your uterus. So what this medicine does is it comes in and it does that. It starts to contract your uterus and then it expels. Now, this form is only good in the first trimester and absolutely the safest within the first 6 weeks. So if you do get pregnant and you can get access to this medication, a 6-week ban would not be terrible because you could get access to this and get it done. But if you're at 6 weeks and a day, you're no longer eligible for this medication.
Okay, is this the same thing as the morning after pill?
No, the morning after pill in the United States is available over the counter. So you can go in to any pharmacy that has it and you can just buy it. You don't need a prescription, you don't need a doctor's order, and you don't need a parent's permission either if you're underage. So, and that's something too that they're trying to stop, of the sale of this morning after pill. Now, the morning after pill is not going to expel a pregnancy. So if you are already pregnant, taking the morning after pill does absolutely nothing. So you have to take it. This is emergency contraception. So what it does is it suppresses ovulation. So if you're having sex and the condom breaks, or you're raped, or you're a victim of incest, or you didn't use contraception, maybe you had a little too much to drink and you forgot, or whatever it doesn't matter what the circumstance was, whatever it is.
Right.
You go to the pharmacy, you get the morning after pill, it suppresses ovulation. So if there is sperm and ovulating egg anywhere in the vicinity, it will suppress the fertilization.
Huh.
It does not work if you're already pregnant. It's not an abortion pill.
Okay. And I think that's a really good, because that was new information for me, because of course, when I was growing up, did we have
didn't have it.
We didn't
Nope.
have that.
No.
Of course not. Okay.
Nope.
So that's good to know, because then I can share that information with, proper information, and educate my
Every
youngsters.
single teenager on the planet, every single college student on the planet should have these in their wallets right next to the condoms,
Yeah.
right? In our day and age, we carried condoms with us. Jason had a condom in his wallet. I had a condom in my pocketbook. You have to protect yourself.
Yeah.
But when we were that age, or when we were much younger, there were not female condoms either. It was a male condom, and that was it. Yeah, that was it. So, I always had a condom in my pocketbook. But they should all have Plan B in their pocketbooks.
Yeah.
And the men should have them in their wallets. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so that's a good distinction. I'm glad that I thought of that, because I was thinking that it was quite similar, and clearly is completely different. So yeah, so then that's the morning after pill, completely different from the medicinal termination
Yeah.
of a properly is it done?
So the first one is going to stop everything. The progesterone stops, the fertilization stops, implantation cannot happen, and then the second one expels 2 or 3 days later, and then you should get a period, probably a little bit heavier than normal. You could have a little bit more pain than normal. Treat it as a period, just a very bad period. And if anything should go wrong, like you start bleeding, like through tampons and pads, like anything that's not normal or not typical for you, you need to get to the doctor for, there could be a whole host of reasons why.
Right. Okay.
But it is one of the safest forms of abortion. It works, I think it's like almost 100% of the time. Sometimes you have to take 2 of the second pill if it doesn't like really everything get out. I have heard of people taking 2 of the second pill, but it is safest form of reproductive health care that is out there. There are no side effects to it, as far as I know from my research.
Okay. So then the next option, if for whatever reason you're too far, you said that that's only up to 6 weeks anyway, right?
It's most effective in the first 10 weeks of pregnancy.
Okay, so you're gonna tell us about the difference between the different types of medical procedures that can be done.
Yeah. Okay. So there's four that are typically done. The vacuum aspiration, which is a medical vacuum, not your Hoover in the closet. Please don't use that. We'll talk about those back alley abortions later on too. This is a surgical vacuum. It's going to, this is typically done during the first trimester of your pregnancy, and it will remove the contents of your uterus and the uterine lining. Then there's a DNC. The DNC is the procedure where it dilates your cervix. Your cervix is at the bottom of your uterus and it opens and it closes depending on what's going on. It's closed during pregnancy to protect the pregnancy from infection. So it's typically open and that's how the sperm get in. Once the sperm get in and you are pregnant, it closes up and it has to be physically opened if it doesn't go full 9 months to term. Okay. So that's the DNC. They'll open, it opens up the cervix and with a small spoon-shaped instrument, they'll go into your uterus and they'll scrape the lining of your uterus. And then that's how they do the DNC. Then there's a D&E, which is a dilation and evacuation. This procedure is usually performed in the second trimester, and it involves dilating the cervix as well and using forceps to remove the contents of the uterus. So again, this is not something that somebody decides on a whim that they're going to have done. Having
Right.
forceps inserted into your vagina and pulling out the contents of it is traumatic. You will be put to sleep. It is a surgical procedure and it is not done willy-nilly because I changed my mind.
Right.
Then the fourth one is an induction abortion. And this is when you're given medication that is going to induce labor and then expel the contents of the uterus. This is very similar to what happens during a miscarriage, where your body naturally starts to contract to expel the pregnancy. And this is used in very late stage abortions, which are very, very rare. And with our Republican nomination this year, he has gone on TV and said that they are aborting pregnancies after birth and also right up to birth. That is murder. That doesn't happen. There is no way that someone is going to deliver a healthy, viable baby at that time and then kill it because they changed their mind.
Right.
They do not go into a female body and start sawing off pieces of the baby at that point, because in the third trimester, if that's a viable pregnancy, it's a baby. They are not going to be sawing off its arms and legs to abort it to take it out. That does not happen.
That's not even physically possible.
No, it's not. And you have a portion of the population who is so brainwashed into this MAGA cult that they believe that this is happening. It does not happen. It does not happen. You do not kill a baby after birth and call it an abortion. You call it murder and you put the doctor and anyone else involved in it in jail for murder, not abortion.
I think all of us can agree on that fact.
No, you would think, but no. There are some really uneducated, brain fried individuals on this planet that believe that that is happening, even though there is no evidence of it ever happening. They
Right.
still believe it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's It's incredible, really. It's really incredible.
It
Okay,
really is.
so
So those
with
are the
those,
4 types of surgical abortions.
okay, and so those are standard practices, right? So most OBGYNs are educated and knowledgeable in these procedures, so
Mhm.
they can perform them when necessary.
Exactly.
Keyword being like when it's necessary, because
When
it's
it's
not
necessary.
always necessary. Okay. So how does that, let's then talk about, we've been talking about the 6-week ban, but there are a sprinkling of states that have a 15-week ban.
Mhm.
So that makes it even more difficult, if not impossible, right? And then you have like the states that are still open or free that don't have a ban.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to have a visual to see,
Yeah.
um, especially for people who aren't familiar with the individual states of the
Mhm.
country.
Right.
Um, just being able to see those colors, like of like, not crazy, somewhat crazy, like insane crazy.
Yeah. Let me share my screen. Okay. So here, now this is going to be, let me find one that is from today because yesterday Florida switched over to a 6-week ban.
Oh,
I
that's
believe
right.
this might be the map for it. Yes. Okay. Over here. All right. So anything in orange is banned. So we have Alabama, Arkansas, Idaho, Indiana, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, North Dakota, Oklahoma, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, and Virginia. This is a total abortion ban with no exceptions for rape or incest. Abortion is banned with no exceptions. So you can see right here on the details here.
Mhm.
Total abortion ban. Abortion is banned with limited exceptions. Abortion is banned with no exceptions. No exceptions. Included exceptions for rape, but not incest.
Isn't that
What the fuck does that mean? Okay, so if you get raped by a stranger, it's okay. But if your father rapes you, you gotta have it. I don't think I took enough Xanax. No exception for rape or incest, only in the first 6 weeks of pregnancy. No exception, no exception, no exception, no exception, near total banned. And that the state can restrict the sale of abortion pills in West Virginia.
yikes?
These are the states
All right, let's
that
look at the map. Let me see the visual.
these are the states that it is illegal to have female reproductive systems. These
All
are
right,
your states, ladies and gentlemen.
and
Here you
that
go.
is the dark
And
orange
you have to
color.
add Florida to the orange because they flipped yesterday.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So if you live here, you're screwed because this is where you would be going and you can't go anywhere. You're locked in.
Yeah.
Now, this is Georgia, and Georgia's ban is also at 6 weeks. The state Supreme Court upheld the 6-week ban in ruling in October, reversing the lower court's decision to void the 2019 ban. So this should also be orange. Then we get into the 15 weeks, which would be Arizona. Where are the rest of them? Come
I
on,
think there was a here up at the top. There's a next button
up at the top. Ah,
right there.
thanks. Okay. Florida, that needs to be switched. Georgia, I believe that needs to be switched as well. Nebraska, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Utah. 15-week ban. So, abortion is banned as, oh no, this is, the orange is a total ban. This is the week. So, okay. So I was wrong about that. The orange is a total ban. There is no exceptions in most cases for any reason to abort a pregnancy. And these are the states too. These orange states are the ones where women are dying because they're not getting health care for miscarriages, ectopic pregnancies,
Mhm.
the death of a fetus inside the body. They have to wait until the woman is almost dying in order to give her any kind of medical intervention. These states. Take note of these states. And if you live in these states, make sure you're voting, and make sure you're voting for the health and well-being of your daughters, granddaughters, nieces, cousins, friends, anybody you know that has a uterus and ovaries. And then you can see here we have the legal abortions, where you can have a legal abortion at any time. And then there's a 12-week ban. And it's not a ban, it's just it has to be approved, because that could at 22 weeks is a little bit getting into a little bit more of it's a forming fetus. It could be viable at that time, although most 22 weeks it cannot live outside the body, but there are those rare instances. And again, at 22 weeks, this is not a choice. At 22 weeks, if you're having an abortion, it's because something has gone terribly wrong in your body and it needs to be taken care of. This is not something that somebody wakes up one day and says, hey, I think I'm going to do this.
Right.
Because the morning sickness is getting too much. Although when I was pregnant with Michael, I remember at one point, and in between Jason and Michael, I had 5 miscarriages. So I was like crazed at this point. And so I finally get pregnant with Michael. It took 4 years. We were over the moon happy about this. And then I had hypermesis, which is that constant throwing up for 9 months,
Yeah.
and just in and out of the hospital, having home nurses come in. I was on bed rest for the most of the 9 months, and I had a 4-year-old that I had to take care of, and my husband was out, working. And at one point I think I was talking to my mom, I'm like, is it too late to abort? And not that I would, I was just, but that, that's not a viable excuse, if you decide that that's what you want to do, then, I'm not
Right.
going to tell you not to. But for me, and for the majority of humans on the planet that have, a beating heart and a brain, something late term like that is not something you're going to do on a
No.
whim, just
No.
because you're not feeling well. Women have more resilience than that. And give us a little bit of credit that we
Yeah,
know the
absolutely.
difference between a little bit of morning sickness where I can't take it anymore and killing a fetus. Like we know the difference.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's the map. There you
Okay. And so honestly, like I was thinking it was gonna, I mean, again, I'm a very visual person. And I was
go.
thinking, like, I mean, this is bad, don't get me wrong, but it's not as bad as I thought it was gonna be. I thought it was gonna be a lot more,
Yeah.
um, I thought it was gonna be
This is from
more
today.
orange, to be honest.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it also
This map,
says a lot about the demographics of this country.
yeah. You can see.
There is a
Yeah, the coasts, all the coasts except for North Dakota and a little bit of Idaho. But you can see it's all the coasts, and these are typically blue states when we have elections. These are
yeah,
typically the more liberal states where people have more rights, which is very ironic because the right uh the right is always, preaching, don't tread on me, don't put your laws on me. They're the ones who are restricting healthcare. They're the ones who are banning books. They're the ones
yeah.
who are going into schools and telling, what the teachers can and can't teach. They're the
Yeah.
ones that are
They
traumatizing LGBTQs because they don't believe in how they live. So it's
right.
ironic that they're the ones that are like, we're the Freedom Caucus, and that's what they call themselves, the Freedom Caucus, and yet they're the ones taking away all of everybody else's rights.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can see, and then the South,
Hmm.
this South here, honestly, I think in order to save our republic, what we need to do is invest in air conditioners put them in these southern states, because I think the heat, and I'm not even kidding, I know it sounds like I am, but this crazy heat that these people have to deal with on a day-to-day basis is making them not think clearly.
Yeah.
How are you taking away the rights of half the population and being okay with that? How are you doing that and sleeping at night? And it makes me crazy. It really
Yeah.
does. It really does. What has to happen is these states, these blue states here, these people need to move to the southern states and really start educating these people on what the hell is going on, and really start getting involved in these southern states, because this is where the majority of that religious cultish behavior is going on.
Well, and I
So
find it interesting, I have never had held Texas in a place of my heart at all, but I find it to be a very interesting um place because they are so dynamic and um really they're their own entity. I think out of any state that we have, like Texas really claims, you know, their pride of being Texan. And I think it's interesting that it was only back in what the mid 90s that it was a Democratic state with Ann Richards as their governor.
yeah,
And and she was a very strong personality. And I think she was governor for uh, early 90s into mid 90s and then was defeated by Bush, which the whole, Bush industry kind of took over the state at that point. But it's an interesting to reflect back onto their political history to see where they had been. Again, we were what, in our 20s at that point? So our
yeah,
early 20s in the 90s. So
mhm,
yeah, in a span of 30 years, how it went from a Democratic blue state
yeah.
to the crazy insane
They do have that
thing
great
it is now.
in is he a senator or he's a representative?
Who?
Oh, that there's a good one down there. He's a Democrat. I can't remember.
Oh, the skateboarder, Beta, Boda,
Yes.
Boda.
Beta. It's him. What is his name? Beta O'Rourke. That's his name. Beta O'Rourke. So he fights every single election. He's always on the ballot. He gets a lot of momentum. He just hasn't had enough yet, but I hope that he just keeps going at it, because I think this is going to be the issue that helps keep the the Democrats in office. And I'll say this. I'm not thrilled with Biden right now, because he has had the authority to, and so did Obama, and so did Clinton. They had the authority to cauterize Roe, and they didn't, because it is an election moneymaker every single cycle.
Mhm.
So I hope that when Bush, Biden wins again, that they cauterize this now, so that we do not, am I saying that word right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That they have the balls, essentially, to do that, so that we don't have to fight this every single cycle. Because if there does become an abortion ban across the state, so say the Republican nominee gets elected again, and they're going to do a nationwide abortion ban, even though their political rhetoric right now is not saying that, and they have said it in the past, and they're pulling back from that now, because they're seeing that it's making a negative impact on the polling.
Yeah.
But that is the agenda. The agenda is to make it a nationwide ban. If that should happen, you know, there's nothing we can do about it. We can fight until we're blue in the face, but if they cauterize it, they can't keep threatening us with this every time. And if they do this national ban, voting is going to be next. Birth control is going to be next. They're going to be in your beds. They're going to outlaw LGBTQ, all those people, all of our friends who are now legally married with families of their own. It's all going to become illegal. It can go as far as illegalizing interracial marriages. This is all in the same amendment in the Constitution. They picked this particular amendment out of that one, but it has all of that. It's the Privacy Act. And if they're picking that out of the Privacy Act, they can pick all of them out of the Privacy Act. So don't be fooled by it just being an abortion ban. The abortion ban is how they're sticking their toe in the water to see what's going to stick. And if we allow this one to stick, there's nothing saying that they're not going to broaden that and start picking apart all the rest of the amendments in that law and making those outlawed as well. They're already going after contraception, the morning after pill. So don't be fooled by that. That's all I'm going to say on that.